Busy Wednesday. Right now, let's dial in the former campaign manager for Donald Trump, Corey Lewandowski, down in our nation's capital. Corey, good morning to you.
Good morning.
There's going to be a lunch over at the White House later today at noon 30. The president has called in all the Republican senators, and I think he's going to try to make sure that he can get as many of them as possible to vote to proceed next week on the repeal bill. What are you hearing about this?
Look, I know that the president is a great deal maker, and we were very, very close on this piece of legislation. There are a couple tweaks that I think need to happen to bring Senator Mike Lee from Utah on board. And I think, look, it's been publicly reported that there are probably 2 Republican U.S. senators who aren't going to support the bill. Rand Paul from Kentucky and Sue Collins from Maine. Now, you don't necessarily need them if you get everybody else and you put Mike Pence in the chair and he breaks the tie. So I think this bill is going to get done. The president's probably going to close the deal today. And if that's the case, this bill moves forward.
Wow. What is your source on that? Is that a gut feeling or is that a sourced feeling?
No, my source is I know the president. I know he's a great deal maker. I know he's going to do whatever it takes to get this done. I know Mike Lee is someone who wants to support the president on this piece of legislation. I know that other members of the Republican Senate caucus want to support the president on this. Look, this is something that the American people have been fighting for, and the U.S. Senate has talked about for 7 years. It's now time for action. The president's going to get this bill done. He's campaigned on it. It's time to move forward.
Corey, what in the world? Why these 4 Republican senators? They voted, 3 out of the 4 voted in 2015 to repeal. Now they're saying, no, we're not going to vote on that very same bill that we voted on 2 years ago. We're going to vote against it. What is it? I mean, the American people, first they were frustrated. Now they're getting mad. I mean, what's happening? Are they closet Democrats, these Republicans? Are they on a mission to make sure that the president doesn't succeed?
No, you know what I think it is? I think, whether it's Jerry Moran or it's Mike Lee or it's Rand Paul or Susan Collins, what they've all said is they want to see specific things in the bill that aren't there yet. But it's getting very close. You have to remember, this is a bill that's going to deal with the opiate problem, which is huge in the state of New Hampshire, which is huge in a number of states. We've got Rob Portman, the senator from Ohio, who's now going to support the piece of legislation because we're going to put money into that bill to make sure that people in his state who have a drug problem are taken care of. I think at the end of the day, these U.S. senators are going to come on board. They're going to support the president's agenda because it's the right thing to do for the American people.
Oh, okay, Corey, so what you're saying is the 2 no's at this point are Rand Paul and Susan Collins. And that list we've been putting up of Susan Collins, Murkowski, Capito, and Portman, those are 4 no's, we think. You're saying those 3 of the 4 could be yeses.
And Jerry Moran?
Look, I think Jerry Moran and Shelley Moore Capito, I think they want to get to a yes. They want to help the president's agenda. They also have to fight for the people in their state who have this terrible addiction to opiates. And we've seen this in my state of New Hampshire, in the state of Ohio, in the state of West Virginia. Making sure we're taking care of people is a big part of this legislation. I know the president wants to do that. He's talked about it a lot. It's a serious problem. And if we can put resources into the bill to take care of those people so that their states are taken care of and the people with these terrible drug problems are taken care of, I'm sure the president wants to do this to get this bill done.
But he only has so much control, and I think that Senator Moran and Senator Lee did not even inform the president they were doing this or their leadership. He was at a dinner with 7 of them, and it turns out the whole thing fell apart while they were finishing that dinner in the White House. So there seems to be an unwieldiness. On the other side, the Democrats had 60 votes, 60 senators. They all got behind President Obama. They paid a brutal price. They paid the numbers about 1,000 election losses since they passed Obamacare. Do you think Republicans say, wow, I don't love this legislation and I don't want to suffer the same fate?
Look, Brian, as you know, it's very important. The president's campaigned on this. And don't forget, the House and the Senate, for 7 years, when they were in the minority and didn't have a majority with the president there, they passed bill after bill after bill, knowing that it wouldn't move forward. This is their opportunity. You have a president now who's campaigned on this. He's put his political stake into this. He wants to get this done. His leadership team wants to get this done. They're going to find a way.
But Corey, some people like Charles Krauthammer last night said, man, Barack Obama had 36 national addresses before Obamacare was passed. This president should have done something similar to that. How do you feel about that?
I think the president and his team are working very hard to get this done. And here's what he said. If they can't get this bill done, you will see what will happen when Obamacare collapses. Premiums are going to continue to go through the roof. He's not going to own this. Don't forget, this was Obama's signature legislation in the state of Arizona, in many, many states. Premiums are up over 100%. People are losing their health care. Look, let's increase the amount of money that people can put into their HSAs. Let's make some minor modifications so we can get this bill done. This is important for the American people, so everyone has health care.
All right, let's talk about the president's, one of his latest tweets about fake news. So we saw at the G20 summit, Angela Merkel invited the leaders of 20 different countries to have a dinner. We remember the video of Melania sitting next to Vladimir Putin and talking with the interpreter in between them. Well, the mainstream media is trying to say now that that was a separate meeting, that the president, our president, had a separate meeting with Vladimir Putin that lasted an hour, and they're saying it took place at that dinner. Our president is tweeting saying, fake news story of secret dinner with Putin is sick. All G20 leaders and spouses were invited by the Chancellor of Germany. Press knew the fake news is becoming more and more dishonest. Even a dinner arranged for top 20 leaders in Germany is made to look sinister. What's your reaction?
40 people were at that dinner. Obviously, the 20 G20 leaders and their spouses. Our best representative, who is stunningly beautiful and incredibly intelligent, sat next to Vladimir Putin at the request of the German Chancellor.
Right.
She had a conversation with Vladimir Putin. It was her dinner partner for a few hours. Big deal. And then you know what the president did? Our president, he got up and he walked over and he saw his beautiful wife, the First Lady of the United States, and he had a conversation with her. How is this, a fake? How is this anything other than the President of the United States going over and seeing the First Lady, who, by the way, speaks 5 languages, is incredibly beautiful, and is incredibly intelligent, and is a great representative of our country?
Well, here's the thing, Corey. As you know, this is the mainstream media's opportunity to connect Russia, once again with the president, to make it look like there was some subterfuge or something else going on at that particular dinner.
Yeah, but there's nothing there. Look, the president wasn't even seated near her, and there were 40 people. This is, the president, if he drives in the car for 35 seconds, there's a giant press pool behind him. All of a sudden, it's a secret meeting. There's nothing secret about this. There were literally hundreds and hundreds of cameras when the president spoke to Vladimir Putin. We saw the replay 1,000 times, probably, of the handshake. And then he's seated at a dinner with 39 other people. Putin's on the other side, next to the First Lady of the United States, and all of a sudden it's a secret meeting. There's nothing secret when there's 40 people in the dinner.
What do you think? What do you think she thought when she said, "Oh my gosh, I'm sitting next to Vladimir Putin. The media's going to have a heyday with this," because it wasn't even her decision. I'm sure they had the name tags there, and you said Angela Merkel was the one that put them next to each other.
Well, clearly, look, the president, the first lady were guests of the G20, guests of Germany, so I'm sure they had nothing to do with the seating chart. But what I do know is this, is the first lady is incredibly intelligent. She speaks 5, 6, 7 languages, and if she had a conversation with Vladimir Putin as a person who represents the United States, that is a benefit. Let's find ways, again, we can work together. If that means we can work with Russia to defeat ISIS, then fine, let's do that. The president said it 100 times. I don't understand why we want to have enemies all around the world. Let's make some friends for a change.
Right, and lastly, the president's going to Ohio. He's going to have a rally. Do you think, I know you think that there's something going to happen, but do you think that if he had his druthers, he would just pivot to tax reform right now, being that so much of this is out of his hands?
Well, tax reform is a very, very important component of the president's agenda, and I think what you'll see, hopefully, is 3 big components. You'll see the repatriation of money coming back from overseas, which is going to be a huge boost to the economy. You'll see, probably the increase in deductions for middle class and working families, so they can have more deductions, and you'll see the simplifying of the tax burden, the tax code. Look, if that happens, I love when the president's on the road personally. I don't know if the staff loves it, but I do. I think he's the very best when he's on the road talking directly to the American people. Ohio's been a great state for the president, and I love when he goes directly to the American people.
Well, it's great television. I'm sure we'll have it here on Fox. All right, Corey, thank you very much for joining us live.
So,
thank you.
Corey thinks it lives. Healthcare lives.
Absolutely, which makes perfect sense because it sounds like the vote is going to be on Monday to proceed. And then it sounds like if it does pass in the Senate, then the president will go out to Ohio and it will be a victory lap.
Well, Brian just wants us to say you're right. Brian was saying it's going to pass. We were saying, right, Jillian? Brian's like, I'm right. I'm right again. I stand in the corner and I just laugh at
You think it's all about me.
It is all about Brian, right? Don't you guys know that?
I think, or I
Good morning to you guys. Later today, President Trump's voter fraud commission will hold its first public meeting. The bipartisan panel, led by Vice President Mike Pence, is under fire after most states at least partially refused to hand over voting data. The panel is hoping to pinpoint any potential flaws that may have led to voter fraud during the 2016 election. Chris Kobach, the vice chair of the Presidential Commission on Election Integrity, will join us live in about 35 minutes right here on Fox and Friends. Stay tuned for that. The Supreme Court could rule at any moment on the latest challenge to the president's partially reinstated travel ban. Just hours after Hawaii responded, the Department of Justice pushed back and telling the justices it could seek to drain the nation's top court's original decision. Now, this comes as the Trump administration expanded the list to include grandparents as well as aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, and cousins of people from 6 Middle East countries. President Trump is nominating former Utah Governor Jon Huntsman as the ambassador to Russia. Huntsman, who ran for the GOP presidential nomination in 2012, previously served as U.S. ambassador to China and Singapore. Huntsman has accepted and just needs Senate confirmation. His daughter and co-host of Fox and Friends Weekend, Abby Huntsman, will join us live in about an hour to talk about this huge announcement for the very first time.
Awesome.
So this security guard quit his job with a big splash. Steve, the robot, plunging down steps and into a fountain in D.C. He had only been on patrol for about a week. The company behind the robot saying it was an isolated incident, promising to deliver a new one for free. But Steve's friends and fans know he was one of a kind, remembering him fondly with this memorial, leaving, as you can see, colorful flowers, posters, even a tissue box. So Steve, may you rest in peace, my friend.
Right. There you go. Maybe he'd meet a Roomba in the sky and live on forever.
All right. Thank you very much. Coming up on this Wednesday, brand new details surrounding the death of a bride-to-be shot and killed by a Minneapolis police officer. We just learned what happened in the moments leading up to the shooting. Rob Schmidt has the overnight developments. Come on up, Rob. You're next.
And 17 minutes now after the hour, new details surrounding the death of an Australian woman shot by a Minnesota police officer.
We're now learning fireworks might have been involved near the scene leading up to that tragic death.
Yep. Rob Schmidt joins us right now with the very latest on the investigation. Rob?
Yeah, hey, guys, a loud bang of fireworks being shot off may have led Officer Mohammed Noor to believe that his squad car was being shot at. A 40-year-old Australian-born yoga instructor, bride-to-be, Justine Desmonde, called 911 last Saturday to report a possible sexual assault in the alley behind her home in Minneapolis. Officers Matthew Harity and Officer Noor responded to the call, and we've learned Harity, who was driving the squad car, was startled by a loud bang just seconds before his partner, Officer Noor, fired a fatal shot through the driver's side window of the squad car. The bullet hitting Desmonde in the stomach as she was approaching the car. That bullet killed her. The car's dash camera was off, and neither officer had turned on their body cameras, which they're not required to do in Minneapolis unless in certain circumstances. The Minneapolis mayor says Officer Noor has refused to speak with investigators, and as bad as she and everyone else wants answers from him, there's nothing she can do about that.
I wish that he would make a statement, is what I want to say. We can't compel him by law, but I wish that he would make that statement.
Justine was a beacon to all of us. We only ask that the light of justice shine down on the circumstances of her death.
That's her father there. Officer Noor has had 3 complaints filed against him since 2015 when he joined the department about 21 months ago. One of those complaints led to a lawsuit against him in May, filed by a woman who says Officer Noor manhandled her after being called to her house for complaints that she was having a nervous breakdown. Without any video at this point that we've been able to find, police have been able to find, Officer Harity's testimony may be all that investigators get as they try to work on this case. That could make it tough.
All right.
Send it back to you guys.
Because Officer Noor not making any comments whatsoever.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, Rob, thank you very much.
Thanks, Rob.
All right, coming up on this Wednesday, one sheriff is taking a different approach to fighting the opioid crisis in his county. He is refusing to let his deputies carry the life-saving drug Narcan. Why? We're going to ask him next.
And are you about to book a flight? There's one day that you need to circle on your calendar that's going to save you.
All right, time now for your news by the numbers. First, 11. It's the number of governors ranked with the highest approval rating in the country, and they are all Republicans. The results come from a Morning Consult poll. 3 of the top governors even represent blue states. Next, 41%. That's President Trump's favorability rating, according to the new Bloomberg national poll. It also shows Americans are still not with her, since Hillary Clinton's favorability is only 39%. According to Bloomberg, more than a fifth of Clinton's voters now view her unfavorably. It's how you lose. And the 22nd is the magic day in August when average prices for U.S. domestic flights drop. You can save an average of 20% for the fall season if you want to travel. Steve.
Well, now we know. Thank you, Brian. As we continue our series, Addiction in America, we turn our attention to Butler County, Ohio, one of the hardest hit regions by the opioid epidemic. But their sheriff there is taking a different approach to the crisis by not allowing his deputies to carry Narcan, which is a prescription drug typically administered to people who have overdosed. Why is that? Joining us right now is Butler County Sheriff Richard Jones. He joins us from Cincinnati. Sheriff, good morning to you.
Hey, how you doing this morning?
Doing okay. Explain why. I understand in Ohio, Governor Kasich has allowed every county, every live squad to figure out on their own basis whether or not their first responders should carry Narcan, which they administer to people who have OD'd. Why don't you want your deputies to have any?
It's pretty simple. We're dispatched about the same time the life squad and fire people are. I feel it's dangerous when my law enforcement people get there. We're down on our knees. We're administering the spray into the nose. These people don't want us there. They're trying to hide their drugs before we get there. Then when they come out of their high. They're very angry. They wonder what we're doing in their house, what we're doing here, get out of their house. A lot of times they get into the life squad. We have to have a police officer ride with them. It's dangerous for the officer. So we don't administer Narcan, and nor will I, period.
So you just say it's a personal safety issue for your first responders in the sheriff's department. You're okay, though, with, for instance, the paramedics who are going to show up in the ambulance. It's fine with you that they administer it.
That's their call. Basically, here in the heartland, we're all tired. We're fed up. We had, in a recent area or close area to proximity to where we're at, there was a person in a fuel truck, and he passed out, and he was using needles, shooting heroin. Happens every day all over the country. It happens here. We had one of our fire trucks on the way to an overdose. They crashed. They can't get on time to a call of somebody that's actually injured because of the people that are using this heroin and shooting up. Yeah. And sometimes they'll have to shoot them up with the Narcan 8, 10, 20 times. Wow. It's totally out of control. It's bankrupting the heartland. And we're stuck. And our government's so focused on the last election, they don't really, the people in our community, we don't really care who won the last election. That's over. Help us in the heartland with this drug addiction. It's very important to us.
Well, they are talking about adding some more money for opioids with the very latest, and it sounds like the last Affordable Care Act repeal and replacement issue. Sheriff, before you go, what do people need to know about the opioid crisis that you see every day, and the average person who is living where they're living just doesn't have any idea it's going on?
Here's what we got. In my jail alone, I've had 3 babies born in the last 18 months. The last one was born in the toilet. And this is just my jail. The jails and prisons all over the country, children's services all over the country are exploding. We've got people that are shooting these drugs. If you don't know or have somebody that's doing these drugs, I don't know of anybody that doesn't know or have somebody in their family that's addicted. And it's totally out of control. People are dying every day. And Narcan is not the answer. The answer is the root cause, and we need to stop this, and we need help, and our government's not helping us at all, period.
Well, nobody would know better than you. Sheriff, thank you very much for joining us today, and good luck with the fight.
Hey, thanks.
You bet. So what do you think about that? Let us know. Friends at FoxNews.com. Meanwhile, still ahead, a Chick-fil-A worker comes to the rescue and saves his co-worker's life. The incredible scene, yep, caught on camera. There it is right there. And Democrats are excited after the Obamacare repeal failure, or it looks like, but should they be celebrating when Americans are suffering?
For 7 years, I've been hearing repeal and replace from Congress, and I've been hearing it loud and strong. And then when we finally get a chance to repeal and replace, they don't take advantage of it. So that's disappointing. Let Obamacare fail. It'll be a lot easier And I think we're probably in that position where we'll just let Obamacare fail. We're not going to own it. I'm not going to own it. I can tell you the Republicans are not going to own it. We'll let Obamacare fail, and then the Democrats are going to come to us and they're going to say, how do we fix it? How do we fix it? I'm sitting in the Oval Office right next door, pen in hand, waiting to sign something, and I'll be waiting, and eventually we're going to get something done, and it's going to be very good.
He's got the pen. He's ready to sign something. The big question is, on Monday, will enough Republicans vote to proceed? And we hear the vote is then. And if they do, if they get 51, next thing you know, they're going to vote on the repeal.
Yes. Yeah, and first they got to get okay to repeal, to see if they can vote on repeal. Joining us now is Herman Cain, 2012 presidential candidate. Herman, what do you think the president was really thinking when he was making those statements? Very measured yesterday, did not fire off and attack any Republicans. And you know in his heart, he feels as though he's let down by these guys, misled too.
He has been misled and he's been let down. Now remember, he gave this reconciliation approach a chance. He said all along, maybe we should just let it fail. So it did. So now we go to plan B. He says, let it fail, and then we're going to go from there. Now, I know we got 4 holdouts who said they're not going to vote the same way they voted a couple of years ago. Well, the American people aren't as stupid as they used to be. Because I know a senator in Louisiana, Mary Landrieu, who went back on her word against what she told her constituency, and she got defeated because shows like this, Brian's radio show, my radio show, reminded people that they had lied to their constituency. So if these 4 senators, and we know who they are.
We just put this.
Yeah. If they go back on what they did before and kill this, I think they're going to pay a heavy price.
Well, Susan Collins did not vote to repeal and replace, but for the folks who voted for instance, Shelley Moore Capito up there, or rather, that's right, just a couple of years ago, you know, she ran on, we're going to repeal and replace the first chance we get. Well, now they've got a chance, so what are people supposed to believe?
Well, they should believe what they actually do. And if they follow through with not voting to support it when they voted for it before, I think they're going to pay a price, because the American people, their memories aren't as short as they used to be. I was telling you earlier about a new initiative that I have, Pay Attention Citizens, that you can find at HermanCain.com. That will allow us to let people know when their senator or their representative is going back on their word. Remember when the House version passed? 20 Republicans didn't vote for it. They are on my rhino list. Now we've got 4 senators. If they vote against it, they will also be on my rhino list.
And in the commercial break, Herman, you said the key is for the people watching today and listening to the radio shows like yours and Brian's, is to call the U.S. Capitol today and talk to those people, particularly if you are in their district or their state.
Because they will go back on their word if they don't think that their constituency is paying attention. So Steve is absolutely right, folks. If you live in one of those states, call the Capitol switchboard, ask for their office. You may talk to a person, you may leave a message, but let them know that you're paying attention.
They're counting the calls.
They are counting the calls, trust me. And I had a representative tell me one time that if they get 100 calls, they pay attention. That's what they're counting. That's what they're waiting to see.
Now, Mr. Cain, I was reading an article this morning in Investors Business Daily saying that a lot of these Democrats, they're celebrating the failure of Republicans right now. But one way or another, Obamacare is going to fail. They list reasons why. Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services says insurance companies are applying to take part next year. That's down 38%. 40 counties in Indiana, Ohio, Nevada at risk of having 0 insurance companies in the exchanges next year. 2.4 million enrolled in 40% of the nation's counties will just have 1 insurance company, so no choice for them. An 18% increase in premiums next year for the Silver Plan in 8 different states. So are some, you could argue Republicans could be mad, Americans could be frustrated with these folks that are voting against it, but are they smart? Because then, according to these statistics, Obamacare is going to fail on its own.
It's going to fail on its own. Let me add one more statistic to your list, which is exactly right. Senator David Perdue shared this with me. Nearly 8 million people, 8 million, declined Obamacare in 2014.
They took the fine.
The penalty.
Yeah.
And 50% of those people make $50,000 or less. That's why it's failing. The insurance companies were betting that the mandate would give them windfall customers. It didn't work Because the American people said, even though legally you can tell me I got to buy this and it's got to have this in it, they pushed back and said, no, we're not going to do it. And when the deductible was so high that they effectively didn't have insurance, they said, I had a lady call my show one day and said, I'm just going to take my chances, save my money, and pay my health insurance.
And by the way, those fines are going up every year.
And they're going up every year.
In the beginning, it seems negligible and no big deal, but it gets worse.
Yeah, and so the Democrats spiking the football, they are spiking mostly the people who have no health insurance. Remember, people who work for companies, 80% of us are covered. Then you got the people who own Medicaid. Then you get down to the people who are in the individual market.
90%.
They aren't going to be able to afford it, and the people that are going to be hurt the most are the ones that have no insurance.
So does success leave clues and failure leaves clues as well? This is failed, struggling on a respirator. If you want to do tax reform and get it through, being that everyone's got their own opinions and objectives, what's the correct way to start it off? Do you get Democrats involved early? Does Ways and Means release it? Do they work it through the normal committee process?
Work through the normal process, but I wouldn't count on Democrats getting on board. They are determined to resist, slow down this president. They aren't interested in this president having a success. So I wouldn't count on that. I would put it out there so the American people can see what it is. And here's going to be the key. The key is going to be the simpler they can make it, where the American people understand it, the better chance it will
Are you
pass.
suggesting it should be something like 999?
Well, that's an alternative, but I'm not suggesting that.
One page.
Keep it simple. See, Donald Trump won because he went to the American people. He will get tax reform and simplification passed if it's simple enough for the American people to understand, and they are talking about it.
Well, what's at stake? The economy.
Yes.
If this tax reform goes through first time in 25 years, whatever it is, the economy gets going, and that's what people will be thinking about in 2018. If it fails, it's going to be ugly for Republicans in the midterm.
I really don't think that the tax simplification, tax cuts, and reform is going to fail. I really don't. Because I believe that the American people are engaged enough with their own finances. They know that they're paying too much in taxes. They know it's too complicated. So I believe that he's going to get that one across the finish line. And a member of Congress that would go against that, whatever it is, they would be stupid. Because some of us are going to go rhino hunting in 2018.
Right, which is
people
illegal.
are looking right now.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Herman King, great to see you.
Good to see you all. Thanks a lot.
Good to see you.
Hey, Jillian, tell us something important.
I will tell you something very important right now. You guys got a case of the giggles over there, by the way. Let's begin with this. Alan Dershowitz, a staunch Democrat, says the New York Times refused to run his op-ed because of his views on President Trump. The Harvard law professor claims he didn't have the, quote, right point of view on how the president likely didn't obstruct justice by firing former FBI Director James Comey. Dershowitz says, quote, I really do think the New York Times does not want its readers to hear an alternative point of view on the issue of whether or not the Trump administration is committing crimes. A Chick-fil-A employee jumps into action to save his coworker's life. Watch his video. Surveillance video shows Andrew Myrant using the Heimlich maneuver after the man started choking at their Colorado restaurant. It only took a few seconds before he started breathing again. Myrant now being hailed a hero. His boss bought him a chicken sandwich as a reward. And imagine seeing this on your way into work today. Yeah, that is a massive 250-pound bear riding in a motorcycle sidecar in Russia. Are you guys looking at this? Tim the bear is part of a traveling circus run by a motorcycle club. As you can see, Tim loves the attention, raising his paw, waving to the passing cars. I just got to wonder, what are the people thinking as they're driving by? Is this normal there?
They're thinking, why is that guy wearing such a bright jacket?
That was my first thought.
Bears are so nice. We should all go out and get one. Put them in the car with you.
Yes.
No big deal. So friendly. They'll just wave.
That's what you're wondering? I'm wondering, is it the Papa Bear, the Mama Bear, or the Baby Bear? Hello.
It's a good question, too.
All right, thanks, Jillian. 19 minutes before the top of the hour. Still ahead. In just a few hours, the president's Voter Fraud Commission will meet for the first time. The vice chair of that committee, Chris Kobach, joins us live with a preview of that meeting next.
And this 13-year-old girl was threatened for opening a lemonade stand without a business license. But then her dad fired back. That girl and her father, they're going to join us live.
Happening today, President Trump's Commission on Election Integrity, the team tasked with investigating voter fraud during the 2016 election to get it right the next time. They meet for the very first time today. Here to give us a preview of that meeting and some of the turbulence they've already received is the vice chair of that committee, Chris Kobach, who might be one of the premier experts who had the chief concern about voter fraud in this country. That's why you're in arguably the perfect spot. Chris, first off, big pushback from many states about making their ballots public to see who should be and who shouldn't be voting. Why?
Yeah, and the pushback wasn't about ballots. It was actually about the voter rolls. So it's already publicly available information. The commission just asked, hey, can we have the publicly available voter rolls that any person who walks in off the street can have? And the reason you need that is just so you can start somewhere when you're looking at things of like perhaps deceased people on the voter rolls, non-citizens on the voter rolls, things like that. Fortunately, there was one case where they were trying to stop our meeting today from even occurring, and the judge correctly ruled against the ACLU and other organizations that were trying to stop us. But yeah, we've got to have this information just to continue. And again, to reassure people, it's all publicly available. On any given day during campaign season, there are probably 100 campaigns in each state.
So this was just to make it easier for you, Chris, since it's available?
Yeah, so for example, say someone alleges before the commission that 100 people committed voter fraud in this county, in this state. Well, the first place you begin to see if that's true is to see if those people actually are registered voters and if they did vote in that state.
So this is the thing. They said, well, the president's just spouting off when he said about the popular vote and a lot of people voted fraudulently. He said, no, I'm not. I'm going to put the vice president in charge. And the vice president commissioned this commission. And as you move forward, now you're getting this tremendous pushback. The same people that are so upset about what the Russians did about the integrity of our election are now upset that we might be looking into what states are doing in terms of who is voting in our election. What's behind this?
Well, frankly, there's no good reason behind it, because all we're doing, it's a bipartisan commission. We're studying the issue and putting the facts on the table and letting the American people see those facts. So my first question is, what do they have to hide? Why don't they want a bipartisan commission to look at the facts of how extensive is voter fraud of this type or that type and let the American people know?
All right. Now, there is a push from some Democratic congresspeople to get you removed from this commission. And they wrote a letter to the Vice President of the United States. Conyers and Cummings' name, are on that letter. Why do you think they want you removed, and what's your message to them?
I think they want me removed because I've been fighting voter fraud in my state of Kansas for over 6 years now, and have been very specific about what we need to do and what other states should also consider doing. I guess they just don't want someone heading the commission as vice chair who knows this issue and knows how to get at the problem. I mean, it's a baffling letter. Why wouldn't you want someone with some experience in the area to study the issue?
They think it's this is masked to be. It's actually about voter suppression,
which doesn't even make sense. Yeah, it doesn't even make sense. How in the world can a commission in Washington, D.C. or somewhere studying a problem cause someone in some far-flung state like California not to go to the polls that day? I mean, they haven't even shown us the logical link between A and Z, so it doesn't even make sense.
Chris Kobach, thanks so much. I'll be curious to see what happens with this commission as the president follows through and he gets massive pushback. It's one of the biggest surprises for me so far in this 6 months, and there's been a lot. Chris Kobach, thank you. All right, 11 minutes now before the top of the hour. Coming up, the last minute, he opposed the repeal and replace plan. Now Republicans in the Senate are under fire to do something and get a bill passed. Senator Jerry Moran here next. But up next as well, a 13-year-old girl is threatening for opening a lemonade stand without a business license. How dare she?
It's a sour story with a sweet ending. A 13-year-old girl was threatened for opening a lemonade stand without a business license. That little girl's father taking to social media to sound off, writing, quote, "Whoever the man, I wouldn't call you that if I didn't have to, was that threatened to call the police on my daughter for her lemonade stand. You are seriously pathetic." And then the community came together and did something very sweet for that little girl. Here to tell us about it, Richard LaRoche and his daughter, Jasmine. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Good morning. Richard, I'll start with you. Tell us what happened on that day that Jasmine, your daughter, went out into the community, into the neighborhood, and set up her lemonade stand.
Well, she wanted to set up her lemonade stand, so she asked for permission. I told her she could go to the main gate where the main guard shack is and go ahead and set up. She could be there for an hour and then come back home. And then she wasn't gone 20, 30 minutes. She came back in the house crying and sobbing and told me that someone drove up and asked her where her business license was for a lemonade stand, and then picked up his phone and proceeded to pretend he was on the phone with the police and told her she needed to get out of here. She doesn't have a license.
Wow, Jasmine, that man was so mean. Why did he upset you?
He upset me because I think just because that's never happened to me before, and so it kind of worried me that I thought I was going to get in trouble by the police.
You had to think, like, you're just trying to do a good thing. You're trying to provide lemonade. We all did that when we were your age. It's a beautiful story. It's such an American story, and this guy's trying to ruin it. Do you think he just had a bad day, or was he a mean person?
I think that he was just trying to, I think he probably maybe had a bad day, but I also think he was trying to intimidate me.
Yeah. Okay, Dad, why did you get so mad?
I just thought it was unfair. I think that kids should be allowed the opportunity to find ways to earn money. In her case, we're taking a summer vacation soon, and I thought it's time for her to start earning her own money as far as spending money goes, and I told her that she needed to come up with ways to earn money, and she came up with one, and I think it's just something every kid should be able to do, and whether it's mowing lawns, whether it's washing cars, or having a lemonade stand. You should be allowed to do something like that to earn money and contribute to the community.
Capitalism. You wrote on the Discovery Bay's community Facebook page, you called him sad and pathetic. Jasmine, when I read that, I smiled because my dad would do the same thing. He would defend me. How did that make you feel, knowing your dad was protecting you and defending you?
Well, it just made me feel special because, you know, that means they care. That means that he cares, and that, you know, he was willing to, you know, go out of his way to, you know, try and post everything on the website and get, you know, try to make me happy. So I think it just made me feel like really special.
Yeah, that's really sweet. Yeah, ultimately you're the winner because you have an amazing dad. So what did the police say, Richard?
Well, when the police showed up, the police showed up at the actual lemonade stand that we had the second time, and they just said, you know, had anybody shown up, they would have supported her because they didn't agree with that. And specifically on our community, you are allowed to have a lemonade stand because the HOA does allow it as long as you clean up and things like that, and you're not disrupting anyone.
Well, there's
so
the lesson.
They said had they shown up, yeah, had they shown up, they were going to support her anyways. And the two officers that are in some of the photos showed up after we had already shut down just to support her.
We got to go, but thank you so much. I'm happy that you're selling lemonade again. You know the saying, when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. Thanks, guys.